I woke up, went to work, went to second work, and then went home and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, went to second work, then went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work after I finished my bottle of Black Label, and then fell asleep. Next day, I woke up and got $470. Then I went to Chase Bank and cashed it. Later that night, I went to the car wash, washed my car, bought 100 microfiber towels. Super good purchase. After I went to In-N-Out and then ate, and then I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up and I had a parking violation for $370 for blocking an access ramp, which still today I think is complete bullshit because I was not blocking the access ramp. I went to Walmart, bought 2 basketball shorts, then I went home and slept all day. At 10 p.m. I took a shower, shaved my face, and then went to work, had a normal day at work, and then went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, went to second work, then went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 2 p.m., went to work, went to second work, and then went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 2 p.m., picked up my check for $894 at A&S. Then I went to Ralph's and bought some sushi with my EBT card after I went to work, and then I saw a huge concrete lion next to a homeless guy's tent. So right after work, I went over and tried to put it in my trunk, but it weighed 300 pounds. He ended up helping me, and I gave him $3. He wasn't happy with how much I gave him, but fuck it. All I had was like $3 and then a $20 bill. I wasn't gonna give you $20 to fucking help me. I drove to work, had a normal shift, then went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work. After work, I went to my second job. I dropped off the lion that I had in my trunk inside the lower level parking garage. Oh, that's right, because I had the concrete lion, but I was still living in Penny Lane at the time. So I went to my job and dropped it off in the parking garage, the very bottom. Hopefully store it, I get a place where I can. Also, I have been tracking how much it costs per month for my 2020 Dodge Challenger, and for the past 30 days it cost me about $274 per month. Not bad. I finished up and went home and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work. After a normal day, I went to the liquor store, bought a big bottle of Grey Goose vodka. I went home and drank about a quarter of the bottle. After I did some organizing of my files, recorded a video, then washed my clothes, and then went to sleep. Next day, I woke up, moved my car right in front of the apartment doors, and fell asleep. After that night, I walked across the street, bought some milk and cookies, and then went home, fell asleep. So this entire time, I told the people at my work that I now have this 2020 Dodge Challenger, but the people at Penny Lane, I didn't tell one person. I remember one person saw me get into my car, and they were like, "What? You got this car?" I was just like, "Yeah, it's a rental because my car is being worked on." I pretty much slept all day. Then around 7 p.m. I shaved, took a shower. Then I left early for work, bought 12 jars of instant coffee and 12 gallons Let me say that again. I bought 12 jars of instant coffee. Jesus Christ. I bought 12 gallons of distilled water. After I went to Rouse, bought some sushi, chips, dip, and ate. Then I went to work. The guy who works 1 day a week showed up late, an hour late. He finally showed up. Then the other guy whose was his day off showed up and ended up staying. The 1 day guy left, went home, fell asleep. Okay. Next day, I got woken up by the manager lady at Penny Lane saying that I did not get approved for Section 8, low cost apartment. Also, she was shocked to see the bottle of vodka sitting on my desk. She told me to pour it out like a bitch. Are you crazy? That's a $40 bottle of vodka. After worrying if I was going to be homeless again, I called a few apartments. There was a monthly range between $1,495 per month or one apartment for $1,095 per month, which was a studio apartment. I made an appointment for $1,095 per month on Monday. I drove to work, had a normal day, went to second work, had a normal day, then I went home, then went to Walmart, bought 4 boxes, back home, packed up my entire apartment at Penny Lane, put 2 boxes in my trunk of my car, then alerted the staff that I was moving out on Friday, then fell asleep. All that is currently left in my room is my desk, my fold-up chair, a toothbrush, there's a coffee table, small table, lamp, a drawer, a rug, a chair, and then I fell asleep. Yeah, I remember they pissed me off with that, with not approving me for the low income housing, because how much they made me work for it. And then they're just like, at the end of it, they're like, sorry, I can't help you. I woke up with only 3 hours of sleep, went to work, then I went to second work, and at my second work, and I was laying in my car. My mind was racing at 100 miles per hour, thinking nonstop over and over again, whether if I should live out of my 2020 Dodge Challenger and keep my things in a storage unit, or should I waste the money every single month and get a normal random apartment. Money that I could be using to pay off my car. What should I do? I finished up work since now Monday. I drove out to the apartment complex, then I drove to the closest Chase Bank and arrived, and at 8:30 Chase opened at 9, drove across the street to a McDonald's and ate. At 8:50, right before Chase opened, I called the apartment. They were closed. Google Maps said Monday through Friday they were closed. I called again and again, and I remember I was like outside of the apartment walking around, and I called here 5 different times, and the phone was saying that it was closed. I didn't even pull out of my money. I felt like I was somehow scammed. It was raining, which made it cold, but it felt cold, empty, like if I was a shell filled with heavy, cold, painful air. I drove to the apartment complex again, and all I saw was a large locked gate and an old, angry woman looking at me. smoking a cigarette. It for sure looked closed, so I drove around the surrounding area calling apartments with for rent signs, but they were all closed as well. Apparently, it's pretty standard for apartment complexes to only be open on Saturdays and Sundays. I gave up and started headed home. While I was on the freeway, I called 2 more times and she finally answered. She asked if I was out front. I said no, but I'll be there in 20 minutes. I went to Chase Bank, pulled out $3,000 and went back to the apartment complex. I looked at the apartment and it was so freaking small. But I thought about how bad I felt when it was closed, in quotations. So I signed all the pieces of paper the lady gave me, $125 money order, and then went home and fell asleep. Next day, I got only 3 hours of sleep like yesterday. Went to Taco Bell, ate, went to work. Once I was signing, I got a call from the apartment complex saying that they needed my W-2s. Once I went to her picture, once I sent her a picture of both of my W-2s, she said over the phone that I got approved. And that was like, oh my God, that was like the best feeling ever. She said I can move in tomorrow at 3 p.m. I finished up work, went to my second job, then after work I went home and fell asleep. Next day I woke up at 2 p.m., got in my car to a gas station, put $20 in my tank, then I drove to a money place, got my money order for $1,225. Then I went to my new apartment, signed the final pieces of paper. The lady gave the money orders that she walked me to my apartment, and she gave me a set of keys and a remote to open the gate so I can park my new car behind a safe, secured, locked fence. It smells so bad right now. I have been working non-stop. Oh, I smell so bad right now. I have been working non-stop that I haven't had any time to take a shower. I put 1 box in my apartment, then I had to speed to work. I just made it and showed up at 3:55 p.m. I started work at 4 p.m. For the most part, I had a normal day, but at 7:32, the supervisor called me to the office and told me that the other guard, B6, got super mad and threw the radio at him. Like, what? That just doesn't happen. So we had a new B6 guy, and he threw a radio at the supervisor, and of course he got fired. Apparently, while I was on my break, B1, the supervisor, was calling B6 multiple times. My radio was off because I turned off my radio during my breaks, obviously, because B6 was taking like a 30-minute break when he was only supposed to take a 15-minute break. Once B6 came back to the lobby area where B1 apparently, B6 started cursing out B1, then B3 walked in and B6 started calling B3 a bitch. Then B6 took his radio and threw it at B1. And we had the big, expensive, like $800 radios that like, he threw it at him. The radio hit B1's thumb hard enough to break skin. B6 just went home after approximately 2 minutes. I showed up. I had to do all of B6 jobs and my job. I finished up and drove to my second job, arrived, and the concrete liner that I bought for $3 was thankfully still there. So I put the other box that was in my trunk in the passenger seat and put the line in my trunk. It was so freaking hard. The line weighed like 300 pounds. It insanely heavy, but it's only like 4 feet tall. I think I broke some parts of the bottom of my trunk because I heard some crunching, but also the car runs and gets me to work, so I'm happy. I finished up work, drove to my new apartment and did some organizing, then I took a shower. Next day, I did some organizing of my new apartment, drove to my old apartment at Penny Lane. I moved out the rest of my stuff at my apartment, then I went to work, had a normal day, then I went to my new apartment, moved everything in, including the line. I drove to my old apartment and then fell asleep. Just to rub it in a little bit. I don't like how they made me feel. But like they did obviously help me get back on my feet. So it's not like I'm thankful to them, the people. I'm thankful to the government organization that made the thing. Like I'm not thankful to the people because like how they treated me. It was such a weird feeling. And clearly they're just at their job. It's not like they're doing this to, help this young man. It's like they have their job and they're doing it and that's it. I'm thankful to the government. That's what I'm thankful to. I woke up at 6:30 a.m., officially moved out of Penny Lane, signed the piece of paper. Then I went to Russell Westbrook and Van Nuys and got my car's first oil change. Then I went home at my new apartment, washed my clothes, did some more organizing, made a YouTube video, then I fell asleep. I woke up, went to Walmart, bought a lamp and the lamp light bulbs it was more of an orange color. So I walked to Walgreens and bought some white light bulbs. After putting it together, I drove to Carl's Jr. Then I went to an AutoZone, bought a wrench and installed the license plate on my car. I didn't receive my bed yet. It comes on the 25th. I drove to a Bank of America up the street. Slept in my car. At 10:30 p.m. I drove to work, had a normal day. Then I drove back home and fell asleep on the floor. Next day, I woke up, drank some coffee, drove straight to work. Since B6 was fired, I had to do his job. I finished up work, went to second work, had a normal day, then went home. Next day, I woke up, took $700 out of my locked box, drove to Chase Bank and deposited it, and while I was driving to work, made a deposit of $800 on my car. Once I woke up once I went to work, I did all that I was supposed to do, and at the end of the shift, the new supervisor yelled at me. I hate that motherfucker. I finished up work at EAPS, went to my second job, had a normal shift, then went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, made sure to bring a jar of instant coffee with me, drove to A&S, picked up my check. I drove to Penny Lane and got the $257 in my account that I had with them, signed the moving out papers, gave them a fake address that I moved into. I didn't want to give them my real address, and then drove to PLS, cashed my check. I drove to AAPS, told L1 about S1, and he said that we will sit down and just the three of us and we'll see what's wrong. Next day, next paragraph. I got to be in the E-lot all day and watch YouTube videos. I finished up at AAPS, then went to ANS. I did some financial planning, had a normal day, then I went home. My beanbag bed didn't arrive yet, so I slept on the floor because it comes in like 3 days. See, I'm like a little bit iffy of like even reading the rest of this journal because like for the most part of it, I've already vlogged, but I am going to finish up this journal and then we can see what I'm going to do next. I woke up also last night. I found how to turn on the heater in my apartment. That was like unnecessarily difficult to turn on that heater. You had to like go onto the bottom of it and then like light the igniter of it and then turn it on and then like hear like a tick, 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 and then like the flames go like whoosh and then it smelled too because I hadn't been using it in like such a long time. I took a shower, grabbed my phones, and went. And when I was about to leave, there was 2 huge boxes in front of my apartment. It was my beanbag bed! Exclamation point. I put the box in my apartment, then I drove to a Taco Bell, I ate 4 burritos, then I went to my work. I just slept in my car for the majority of the shift. I went to my second job and slept in my car for most of the shift. About 5 a.m., I looked into the rear view mirror and I realized that I'm not homeless anymore. I looked into my own eyes and repeated about 5 times over that I'm not homeless anymore, trying to grasp what that meant. After work, I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I went to work, had a normal day, and after work, I went home, gathered my filming stuff, tripod, and went outside and recorded at night. Afterwards, I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, gathered all my stuff, then I drove to work, went to first work, then I went to PLS, cashed my check, drove to Bank of America, put $65 in the bank, went home, and then paid a parking ticket. Then I budgeted for the next month, the rent, the phone, the insurance, and the car payment. Next day, I was already awake, so I guess I didn't fall asleep. At 9 a.m., I went to a money place and got a money order for $570 for April's rent. And went to the lady in the office and paid the rent. I remembered that I needed a new parking pass, so I went back to the money place, got a money order for $100, and then went back to the lady and then bought a new one. I stuck it on the front windshield. After I went to Walmart and bought a whole bunch of stuff, including a vacuum, pens, 2 boxes to hold my socks, boxers, hangers, covers, pillow, toilet scrubber, Clorox, and a small whiteboard. I got home, fell asleep. I woke up, checked my mail, and got a letter saying that they will be unable to forward my mail because Plenty Lane is identified as a business. I got in my car, went to work, had a normal day, then went home, fell asleep. I woke up, next day. I woke up, went to work, went to second work, then went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, had a normal day, then I went to second work, then I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, grabbed 2 rolls of blue microfiber towels, put them in my trunk. Then I went to the post office, did a mailbox, checked my mailbox to receive my new, I got my new driver's license with my new address and my new apartment. Then I went to the post office, did an address change using my old address at my parents' house at the mansion, and then use this as my new, my apartment as my new address. I arrived on time as I do every day, and once I was alone at the security desk, I made the most important thing sheet. It's a guide for me for the next few years. It is completely focused on paying off my car so that I can stop working 16 hours a day and 8 hours. So I can stop working 16 hours a day and then start working 8 hours a day by quitting like one of the jobs or something. So my focus back then was just paying off my car so I can have the apartment, have the car, and have one job and be able to sleep. So I began looking for a camera so I can begin my YouTube career. Once I can consistently produce $4,000 a month purely off of YouTube, then I plan to retire from working security and a 9-to-5 job, and I plan to start traveling to all 50 states again in my 2020 Dodge Challenger. I also began a car washing schedule to track the money that I use. After work, I drove home and slept. Next day, I woke up at 2 p.m., went to work, had a normal shift, went to my second work, had a normal work day, then went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, I had a normal day, went home, then I went to In-N-Out. After I sat down and relaxed and then fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to the beach, then I went home, took 3 sleeping pills, and then fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 10 p.m., got ready for work, showered, showed up at work and had a normal day, then went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work. We finally got a new B6, but he literally lasted 1 day. Who was that? Because he got a higher paying job. I finished up work, went to my second job, had a normal day, then went to home and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, finished up work, then went to my second work, then went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 1:30 p.m., drove to A&S, then I changed my address with them to my new apartment. I drove to Chase Bank, deposited my check, then I drove to my work, had a super quick day, drove to my second work, and made a car payment, which was 100% of the check that I just got at A&S, in the exact amount of $896.29. I finished up work, then let me make it clear that the car payment was not $896.29. I was just making extra payments. So if it was like a $500 a month payment, then I was just paying $400 plus extra. Went home, took a shower, then I fell asleep. Next day. No, last night, this morning at 4 a.m., when I was alone, I got up and walked over to a planter with plants in it and I saw a whole bunch of snails and slugs. I was especially in awe with the slugs because I haven't seen a slug since I was a kid, back when I lived in Marietta. No shit. I was a slug. A slug is a snail with no shell, just a naked snail. I picked it up and brought the snail over to the security desk. I wanted to spray it with some hand sanitizer and see what would happen. I remember taking some salts as a kid and putting it on a snail and watching it foam up. But I just sat there looking at it for a bit. It's kind of big, and I thought of it more as an animal rather than a bug. I remembered thinking, I'm a grown man and I could kill this thing if I wanted to, but in no way, shape, or form would that get me in trouble for it. But I just sat there looking at it. It was kind of cute in a weird way. I returned it to the bush. Next day, I woke up, went to work, went to second work, then I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work. After work, I tried to go to Carl's Jr. and I found out that my EBT card was finally canceled. I paid in cash, then I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I slept all day. Next day, I woke up, washed my clothes, finally went to a public storage. Oh yeah, and then the segment I needed. Okay, I went to the public storage and I closed my account. Went home, went until 10 p.m. Then I went to work. I felt so tired. I almost fell asleep a few times, but then I had a 30-minute break and felt better. I drove home, took off my slacks, and fell asleep. Next day, I went home, went to work, and we got a new B6 guard, which was great because now I don't have to do twice the work anymore. I finished up work, went to my second job, then had a normal day, then I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 1 p.m., took a shower, took out the trash, then I went to Chase Bank and deposited my check for $1,011. Damn. Then I came back home and put the pay stub in an envelope that I keep all of them. I sat in my car in front of my apartment until 2:15, then I drove to work. Next day, I woke up at 1 p.m., took my collagen, vitamin C, garlic, creatine, fish oil, took a shower, put on my clothes, went to my car, paid my car insurance, then I went to work, made a $1,300 payment on my car, finished up work, went to my second job, went to home, and then fell asleep. Next day, I went to work, went to second work, then I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work. It was Wednesday, so I worked the E-lot, so I drove home. I left to work, drove home, and grabbed a $20 bill. Then I drove back, bought 2 pizzas, and I sat down in my car in the E-lot and ate. That's where I bought 2 of them. I think I had to throw away like 2 slices, so I ate like an entire pizza and then like 6 slices or whatever in my car in the E-lot and ate. After, I went to Ralph's and bought some pineapple juice. Then I went home and then mixed it with vodka. I had about 3 drinks and then fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to Walmart, bought some water, new shoes, new slacks. Then I went back home and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, refilled my beanbag bed, shot a video, then I went to my car, got some dollar coins, and tried to do laundry, but the machine didn't accept dollar coins, so I walked to the 7-Eleven and got quarters. I came back to my apartment and started my laundry at 9 p.m. I took a shower, finished my laundry, and went to work. Oh, then I had a normal day. Then I went back home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, and B4 didn't show up for work, so I had to do building checks. I finished up work. I saw that Jake Paul won his boxing match, and since I was up the street from the Staples Centers, I went down there and made a live video. And I had a normal day. Then I went home, fell asleep. I woke up next day. I woke up, I went to Taco Bell, got 2 burritos and a quesalupa. Then I drove to my get ready spot, a McDonald's right up the street from work. I ate, drank some coffee, then I started work at my break. Then I went and washed my car. I didn't have enough time to dry it, so I finished up work, drove to my second job. There was a bunch of water spots all over my car, so I took Windex and a microfiber towel and cleaned my entire car by hand. After I finished up work, then went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 12:30 p.m., laid on my beanbag bed for about 30 minutes, drove to ANS security office, picked up my check. After I went to PLS, cashed my check. Normally I would take it and put the most of it in my bank and make a large car payment, but I can't because the Courtyard Marriott, where the security site is, my second job, the contract is going to be up, meaning that no more second job until ANS can place me at a different site. That might be difficult because I can only work Friday, Tuesday, 11:30 till 7:30 a.m. So until they can find me a site with that exact schedule, I won't be able to continue working 2 jobs with this car payment. Having to pay all that working 1 job at AAPS, I will owe negative $80 at the end of the month. Oof, too much month at the end of the money. So I am starting to save up money now so I can make sure to pay all of my bills in the upcoming months. After cashing my check, I went to the gas station and put $40 in. Then I went to my get ready spot and I had a problem with my Capital One Finance app. My car was on the app, but my credit card was not, so I called Capital One Finance and figured it out. Paid $90 off. Now I can make my car payments and credit card payments on the app. After I went to work and I bought some black and white shoes, spray painted them black, went to my second job, then I went home and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 2 p.m., grabbed $1,100, went to a money place and got a money order for $1,095 for my upcoming rent on the 1st. After I went on my Capital One Finance app and scheduled a $504 a month and 94 cents payment for the upcoming week. I went to my work, had a normal shift, then I went to my second job, and God, I smelled so bad. I finished up work, then went home, took a shower, and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, it was Wednesday, so I had to start work at 5 p.m. I left to work at 3:30. Before heading to work, I took $705 and drove to the Chase Bank and deposited it for my $504 a month payment tomorrow. The $90 for my credit card, I was like $100 over, but that's okay. I had a normal shift at work, then went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up and my automatic payment for my car went through. I slept all day, and then at night I did a hot bath and went for a run. Then I tried to do an ice bath, but I think the water was too warm and the ice melted quick. Then I fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, washed my clothes at night, then I went to work, had a normal day, then I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, put $2.75 in my gas tank because I'm almost on E and now I'm out of money. B6 didn't show up, so I did his job. Went to my second job, had a normal day, went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at, oh yeah, because I had $4,000 plus saved up, right? But I guess I burned it all because of the apartment. And then making these huge car payments. Oh. I was like, how the fuck was I out of money? I woke up at 2 p.m. I get paid on the 10th and the 25th from AAPS normally, but since it was Sunday, we have to wait till tomorrow to get paid. Sadly, for the first time ever, I had to use my Chase Bank debit card to put $20 in my gas tank. I was going to risk and drive it to work, drive it to second work, and then drive it home and back to work tomorrow when I got paid, but it's too risky. I showed up to work at 6 p.m., came around. B6 didn't show up again, so I did both jobs. After work, I went to work. I had a normal day, then I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, got my check for $840, which was low for AAPS, and I had to work with L1, which sucks. I worked super hard for no reason. Then I went to my second job, and on my break I cashed my check, saved $60 for gas and laundry, then made a scheduled payment for $800 payment for the 28th after I went home and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, went to second work, then I went home and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, and after work I went home and then fell asleep. Next day, I slept all day, and at night I went for a run, then I played some basketball, then I went home, fell asleep. Yeah, they left a basketball out there for me. Next day, I slept all day, and at 10:50 I left to work, worked, then I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, drove out to my get ready spot, then at 3:40 p.m. I parked up at my work. At 4 p.m. I started, and we were supposed to have a new B6 to work the E-lot, but apparently the new guy worked one day and got caught smoking weed. I remember him in his car in the E-lot. So he got fired, and S1 said no one, meaning me, can park in the E-lawn, but fuck that. So I parked in the E-lot and had a normal shift. Next day, I woke up, wrote out a to-do list, finished up work, went to second work, then I drove out to Van Nuys, and at 10:30 a.m. I went to ANS, picked up my check. After I went to PLS, cashed my check, then I put $20 in my gas in my car, then after I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up I got 2 hours of sleep, went to work, and and worked. At work, I put $200 in my Bank of America account, paid my phone bill, went to Little Caesars, ate a pizza. Then I finished up work, went to second work, put $45 in my credit card. Then I finished up work, went home, and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, went to second work. Then I woke up. I woke up, went to work, went to second work, and then went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, and on my break, I went to the Curacao, bought a 9-bot Max scooter for $800. I didn't pay the $800 up front. I put on my credit card and am making $100 a month payments. I finished up work, dropped the scooter off at my apartment. Then I went to the car wash and spent about 2 hours washing my car. Afterwards, I went home, didn't fall asleep, and just stayed up. Next day, once the sun came up, I drove out to Walmart and bought some toilet paper, Windex, and some cleaning supplies. After I drove to an AutoZone, bought an interior protector, and then went to a parking lot. I finished up cleaning up my car. After I got back home, I made a video. Then I went to the beach. Then I fell asleep. Next day, today's my brother's birthday, but sadly we don't talk right now. I woke up, took my scooter to Rouse, bought some sushi and an apple pie. Then I came back home and ate. A few hours later, I drove my scooter all the way to Jack in the Box, got 20 tacos. Once I got back home, I ate, then relaxed. Then the rest of the day, later on at night, I went to work, had a normal shift, then I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, and B4 didn't show up, so it was just me and S1, which sucked ass. I finished up work, went to work. Oh, also, I was super happy because I mentioned the scooter and I said I'll bring it in Monday so L1 can see it. And I went home, fell asleep. So L1 is Lieutenant 1, and then S1 is Supervisor 1, and obviously Lieutenant is like right under, it's like CEO, the guy in the office, and then L1. So yeah. I woke up, went to work, had a normal day at work, went to my second job, and fell asleep. I woke up, next day, I woke up, called the apartment, and tried to see if the payment showed up on my credit report, and she said no. So I said I wanted to terminate my lease. I sent the 30-day notifying through my email. I put my scooter in my trunk and left for work. I showed L1 the scooter, because he would take his scooter from his house to the job every single day. So I was trying to convince him to buy a scooter. I put it in my trunk and began my shift. All day I felt as if I made the wrong decision to begin to terminate my lease. I finished up work, drove out to my second job, consistently thinking that I made the wrong decision. At 8:30 a.m., I planned to call the apartment and ask to see if it's too late to just continue the lease. I finished up the shift, went home, I called the apartments and canceled the lease termination. Then I fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work. We still haven't found a B6, so I still work the E lot. It's easy, but boring sometimes. I finished up my shift and went to my second job. I had a normal shift, and at the end of the day, So I had a normal shift at my second job. It was the last day at the Courtyard Marriott because the hotel was closing to start construction. I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, had a normal day. Then I went home, changed my clothes. Then I emptied my entire payment for all his stuff, like my beanbag bed. Oh, so I emptied my entire apartment, not payment, of all this stuff, my beanbag bed, my desk, everything, and I cleaned the entire floor after I put everything back and drove my scooter around the neighborhood. After a ride, I went to the car wash and washed my car. Huge problem. While I was washing my car, a flake of paint chipped off the front of the car. Like, really? It's a brand new car. I stopped washing the car right away, tried it. Then I went home. I was super upset, but I didn't think too much about it. I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 8 a.m. and drove to RDBLA and asked them how much it would cost for them to fix, and they said that they would have to paint the whole entire front bumper for $1,500. I respectfully declined. I then drove to the dealer that I bought the car from, and they said that they don't paint. I drove to an auto zone. I bought some touch-up paint. After I drove home and fixed it myself for less than $20. It's still noticeable, but barely. I just rested up all day and then fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went for a ride on my scooter, then I fell asleep and I woke up at 8 p.m. I went to In-N-Out and came back home. I got ready for work. I left for work and arrived at my new job. So ANS got me a second job that matched up with my schedule so I can continue working 16 hours a day. This is a Mayfair hotel, so it's a lot of fun. I'm working on the third floor and I get an entire room to myself. For the most part, I have to stay at the fold-up desk in the hallway, but room 312 is for staff. I finished up work, got home, took a shower, cleaned up my apartment, then I fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 2 p.m., got in my car, went to work, and we got a new B6. I finished up the shift, and right at the end, a guy gave me $7 each. Oh, a guy gave me $7 for letting his car stay in the customer lot. Yes, sir. After my first job, I drove up the street to my second job, and that was the cool part too. It was only like 2 blocks away to my second job. I had a normal. I also found out that you're not supposed to go into the room that I was excited about, so that sucked. I went home and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 2 p.m., headed out to work. Once I got to work, I drank some coffee, had a normal day. After I went to my second job, I worked on parking too, so it was a little bit better than working on the third floor. I can't believe that they wouldn't let me use the fold-up desk for no reason. Disrespectful. I finished up the shift, then went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 1 p.m. and almost fell back to sleep, but I heard somebody's what sounded like, if you don't get up now, you're gonna miss it. Oh yeah, I was in my apartment. I heard that on the street. I got up and put on my clothes and drove out to ANS office, picked up my check for $896. Then I went to PLS, paid the $10 to cash it. After I drove to a Taco Bell, got 12 Cinnabon Delights, 3 burritos, and a Pepsi. I drove to the McDonald's that I go to before work, drank some coffee, started my workday at night. I had to work the lobby because the lobby guy, B1, had to go pick up his dad. I worked the lobby, finished up work, then I drove to my next job, worked the 3rd floor, but the bitch and the asshole who gave me the problem were not there. However, there was some staff in the 312 room, so I could not go in and sleep on the couch. He didn't bug me about sitting at the desk, so it's whatever. I finished up work, went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, had a normal day at work, went to my second job. I got room 312 all to myself. I finished up work, then I drove home. Next day, I woke up, went to work, had a normal day, drove home, got on my scooter, went to the 7-Eleven, bought a 4 Loko. Then I drove home, put my laundry in the wash, drank my 4 Loko. Then I drove to 7-Eleven again and bought another 4 Loko, finished my laundry. Then I drank some vodka and I put my scooter in my trunk, and then I drove to Santa Monica Beach. And then I fell asleep somewhere on the beach. Next day, I drove to Russell Westbrook for an oil change on my 2020 Dodge Challenger, and 8 hours later, I traded in my Challenger for a 2021 Ram 1500. That beautiful beast sitting right over there. I drove home and had a very bad headache, so I fell asleep. I woke up later still with a headache, so I went to sleep. Bought it with 19 miles on it. And thank God that I did, because I was thinking, like, there's no way that I could live in the Dodge Challenger because it was too small, so everything's working out pretty good. Next day, I woke up still with a headache, drove to the Ralphs and put 4 gallons of water in my truck. Then I went back home, then I went to work, and then I fell asleep. Next day, I woke up regretting my purchase of my truck all day because the $900 per month payments. I finished up my job, then I drove to my second job, still heavily regretting my purchase. It's so big. I sat here at my job at 3 a.m. thinking it over and over again. I budgeted everything out, and even with the rent, I still have in surplus of $600, so that calmed me down quite a bit. But I finished up work, then I drove home and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, put on my slacks and shirt, headed to work. When I was walking to my truck, there was a new mini fridge and a microwave in front of the dumpster, so I took both of them in my apartment and sprayed the fridge with Clorox. Then I locked my apartment, got in my truck, and then went to work. I went to my second job and worked the 15th floor, finished up, and went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 2 p.m., I went to work. I thought about my truck all day, of how I made a horrible decision. I finished up at AAPS, then I drove up the street to my second job, worked the 15th floor at 5 a.m. I went down to the lobby and did the garage, I went down. The other guard was asleep in his car, so I went to my truck and took a nap as well. I went back to the garage front, turned in my daily activity report. I went home and there was a bunch of water on the floor in my apartment because of the ice in the inside of the mini fridge that I just got. But I knew it was going to happen because I left the door of the fridge open just so I could thaw it out. Also, for the past few days, there's been this guy sleeping in his car outside of the entryway for the parking lot and at my apartment, and I want him gone because I don't want to get robbed. Next day, I didn't fall asleep. I got off work, went home. This little electrical box thing in a plastic bag that came with the truck, the spare key, my debit card, my binder with all my pay stubs, contacts, phone, chargers, because I knew that I would most likely go to the dealer and have to go straight back to work. I took a shower and went to Russell Westbrook dealership. I arrived at 8:30 a.m. and I found out that I'm going to have to speak to the general manager, and he came in at 9 a.m. Once I arrived, I explained that the truck was far too expensive at the $900 per month. He told me all I could do was do a volunteered repo. I said, let's do it. But then he told me that I wouldn't be able to buy another car. That would leave me stranded with no way to get to either of my jobs. Both of the general managers, there was two working there, a huge problem. They said could they speak alone in their office for a moment. About 5 minutes later, they called me back to the office. These two people were so concerned for me that they managed to lower my monthly payment from the $900 to a shocking $591 per month. My Dodge Challenger was $504 per month. What the fuck? Amazing. I left the dealership so happy. I drove home, arrived at 11:40 a.m. and got about 3 hours of sleep. Then I got up, went to my work, picked up my $940 check. I drank some coffee and was so happy all day. Also, I got insurance for only $169 per month. What? Exclamation point. I can now afford to have a brand new truck, apartment / bills, and still have money at the end of the month. I was so hyped all day. Yeah, good times. I was also told by the dealership general manager that I have the option of keeping the truck for 3 months, and then if I want to, then I can trade it in and get another car that is less expensive. I will most likely keep the truck. After working at AAPS, I headed straight to my second job. I had a normal day, finished up the shift, then I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 3 p.m. I put on my clothes, then I went to my truck and drove to work. Right before work, I drove to PLS, cashed my check. I showed up on time, grabbed the address form to change my address, went up to the 10th floor and slipped the paper under the door of the office that I work for. I drove my big ass truck into the employee lot and began to relax. I opened the owner's manual of my Ram 1500 Bighorn Lone Star Quad 4x2. I found out that my car weighs a whopping 4,873 pounds and is a bright white clear coat color. I finished up work, went home, and started my laundry. While my laundry was in, I went to Ralph's, bought a pie, granola bars, some sushi bowl. I arrived back home, ate, and took out my laundry. I went to the car wash and figured out how difficult it is to wash a huge truck. Now it's easy, but yeah. After I went to Santa Monica Beach and rode my scooter around till about 4 a.m., I stayed awake and drove to Walmart. Next day, I woke up, waited till Walmart opened. I bought some tire shine and new shoes. After I started recording a YouTube video, then after recording, I went back home and unloaded my truck and cleaned up my apartment a little. Then I took 3 sleeping pills and then fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, drove my scooter to the money place to try and get a money order for my rent, but it was 6:08 p.m. and it closed at 6 p.m. The money place? Where's the money place? For a money order? Because the place I went was 24 hours a day. So I drove to Chase Bank and deposited $300. Then I went to a Little Caesars, bought a pizza. Then I drove back home on my scooter, went to a pizza. Then I drove back with the pizza. I ate the pizza, fell asleep. I woke up at 10 p.m., went to work, had a normal day, then went home. Next day, I woke up at 2 p.m., went to work. I felt super tired, so I fell asleep in my truck for about 2 hours. I finished up the workday, then I went to my second job and worked the garage. I got to see a bunch of Rolls Royces and G-Wagons because they were having a party, because they have parties on Saturdays and Sundays. Apparently the admission was $1,000. I finished up work, went home, trimmed my hair, then fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 2:30 p.m., put on my clothes, then I drove out near a PLS, got a money order for $1,095 for the rent due on the 1st. After I drove to work, had a normal day. Then I drove to my second job and worked the 3rd floor. Around 5 a.m., I sat there and realized that I had no friends. I thought of how I destroyed my relationship with my family. Sad but true. Next day, I woke up at 1 p.m., got in my truck, and I drove to an A&S and picked up my check. After I drove to a PLS and cashed my $896 check, I put the cash in the center console of my truck. Then I drove to work. It was it was a holiday. I had a normal day. Then I drove to my second job, worked the 3rd floor. I had a normal day. I got home safely like normally. I signed the $1,095 money order for the rent that I got the other day. I drove my electric scooter from my apartment to the leasing office and paid the rent. Then I drove my scooter back to my apartment, put my scooter on its charger. Then I took a dry erase marker and wrote on the wall of my shower a step-by-step to-do list while showering: wet hair, shampoo, etc. I took a shower, brushed my teeth, then I put my clothes up and slept. Next day, I woke up, put $92 to fill up my gas tank from empty to full. Then I went to work. After work, I went to my second job. I had a normal day, went home, and then fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work. After work, I drove home at 11. I drank some coffee, put my clothes in the washer. Then I drove to Ralph's, bought a half an apple crumb pie, came home, ate it. Then I switched my clothes from the washer to the dryer, waited 45 minutes. I took my clean clothes, put them in my apartment, got in my truck, drove to a self-serve car wash, washed my truck, then came back home. Once I got back home, completely emptied my apartment, cleaned off my desk, the countertop, and the floor. Then I set up, I recorded a YouTube video. Then after I fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, drove to Walmart, bought an electric skillet. After I went to Home Depot and bought spray to keep bugs out of the apartment. Oh, spray. But I wrote stray. Towels, earplugs, and Velcro strips. After I went home, took 3 sleeping pills, and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 6 a.m., went to Ralph's, bought 4 cases of eggs, cheese, barbecue sauce, Pam spray, and paper towels. I cooked 6 eggs, put some cheese, barbecue sauce, and garlic salt, and ate. 30 minutes went by, and I made another 8 eggs. I took 3 more sleeping pills and fell asleep. I woke up at 10 p.m., made 8 eggs, washed the pan, grabbed my security stuff, then I went to work, had a normal day, went home, and then fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 2:30 a.m., made 8 eggs with cheese, barbecue sauce, and garlic salt, washed the pan and spatula. I poured some instant coffee into a disposable red cup, walked out to my truck, put the plate of eggs on the floor. Then I drove to my get ready spot up the street from my work at the McDonald's. I drank my coffee and ate my eggs, and after I went to work, I remained in a positive state of mind all day. I remained in a passive state of mind all day, meaning that I almost felt numb throughout the entire shift. After work, I went to my second job and I worked the 15th floor. At 5 a.m., I worked the lobby. I switched from the 15th floor to the lobby because the construction workers come in at 5 a.m. I worked till 6:45 a.m., went home, and then took a shower and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, made some eggs, went to work, had a normal day. Then I went to my second job. I drove home and then fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, went to my second work. Then I went home, went to Ralph's, bought an apple pie. Then I went home, ate it, and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, drank some coffee, went to work. After work, I went to my second job. After work, I went home and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, and it's Wednesday, so I worked the E-lot. I fell asleep in the back of my truck and found out if need be, it's too small to fall asleep in. I plan to live in my car once my lease is up at my apartment to save money. I finished up work, then I did some laundry and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 1 a.m., drove to AAPS, picked up my check, then I went home. I slept all day Then I took 4 sleeping pills. Then I took 2 more sleeping pills. Then I fell asleep. Next day, I woke up. I used the restroom. Then I fell asleep until 9 p.m. That night, I got up, cooked some ground turkey, 6 eggs, ate, then drove out to a PLS, cashed my check. I drove to work at the Mayfair. I had a normal shift, then I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I grabbed $5 from my Capital One card. I grabbed $5 and my Capital One credit card. Then I drove to Ralph's and bought a gallon of water and Reese's. After I went to the USA gas station, but it was closed, I drove out to a gas station, put out by my work. Then I put $90 in my gas tank. After I drove to a McDonald's, drank my cup of coffee, and went to work. I had a normal day and at both jobs, and I went home and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, had a normal day, drove to my second job, had a normal day, then I went home and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, had a normal day, went to my second job, then I went home and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, had a normal day, then I went to my second job and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, B4 didn't show up, so I worked the E-lot from 4 to 9 p.m. From 9 p.m. to 11 p.m., I worked the building checks. After work, I went home, washed my laundry, cleaned up my apartment. Then I went to the car wash, washed my truck. Afterwards, I went to the beach. Then I went home and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 6 a.m., went to Ralph's, made some eggs. Then I fell asleep, woke up later. Then I fell back to sleep. Next day, I woke up, ate some ground turkey and eggs. Then I fell asleep, woke up at 9 p.m., trimmed my beard, took a shower, put my security stuff in my truck, then I went to work. And then just next day, I woke up, went to work, had a normal day, then I went to my second job, and man, I had a difficult shift. I got pretty upset because I had to work out front in the lobby, but I finished up my shift, went to Ralph's, came home, cooked some eggs, ate them, and then fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, cooked some eggs, drank some coffee, and left for work. I stopped at my get ready spot, the McDonald's up the street from my work. I ate my eggs, drove to work. I had a normal day and drove to my second job. Tensions are kind of high at the moment because there's 10 guards and no one knows what to do. I finished up work, went home, and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 2:30, put on my clothes, got in my truck, left to work. Once I was on the freeway, I realized that I was low on gas, so I had to drive back home, grab my debit card, and head back. I drove to a gas station, put $56 in my tank, and still arrived to work on time. I had a normal day, then I went to my second job, had a normal day, then I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 2 p.m., went to work, went to second work, then I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, ate a Little Caesars pizza, then I finished up work and went home, did my laundry after I drank a Four Loko, ate In-N-Out, and then fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, slept all day. Next day, I woke up, went to the car wash, vacuumed my truck, went to PLS, got a money order for $1,095 for my rent. Then I went to Walmart. At Walmart, I got 4 pairs of shoes, belts, slacks, a new iPhone. After I went home and got ready for work at 10:30 p.m. I made some eggs, took a shower, and went to work. Work was a little crazy, but I finished up. Then I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I didn't sleep much last night, but I got up, drove up the street to Big Lots to see if they sold duffel bags so I could buy one. Oh! I drove to Arouse, bought 6 gallons of distilled water, paper plates, barbecue sauce. Then I drove back home. I called my insurance provider to make sure that the payment went through yesterday, and it did. After I signed the money order for the rent, I dropped it off in the rent box. I rested for a little bit, drove to work. Once I got to work, I got word that B6 wasn't showing up, so I had to work the E-lot and do the building patrols. After work, I went to my second job and had a normal shift. Then I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, had a normal day. Then I went to my second job, then had a normal day and went to work. Then went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up at 1:45 p.m., drove to ANS, picked up my check. Then I drove to work. On my break, I went to Chase Bank, deposited a check. After I went to the bank, I finished up my shift, drove to my second job, had a normal day, then went home and fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work, then went to second work, then I went home, fell asleep. Next day, I woke up, went to work. After work, I went home, fell asleep. And we'll go ahead and call it right there. But I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.
Like, I don't know. It's like I've just kind of been able to pick and choose. I haven't felt any pressure